My old man got me into gaming back when I was a toddler. Things may be a bit different compared to the mid 90s, and I'm not just talking about the graphics. You see, my old man's changed a bit since then. Yep, he died. The Sonic series is one that I have some degree of familiarity with. I played Sonic Adventure 2 back in the day, probably over 20 years ago at this point. Holy shit. The series is approaching its, what, like 35th or so anniversary soon? I can't quite remember. Anyway, I remember I also grew up watching the cartoon from the 90s, the Adventures of Sonic? The more cartoony one. Well, I mean, cartoons are all generally cartoony, but this was the one where Robotnik had the little treads robot that was like green, and then he had the chicken robot, right? That was the one chickeny. It was a chicken robot, yeah? Anyway, that was the largest degree of what I was familiar with regarding Sonic. And I believe Sonic was voiced by Steve Urkel, and there were moral segments at either the end of video. I can't remember, but I remember one of the things that sticks out in my mind is Sonic teaching you about bad touching and stuff like that, stuff for kids to unfortunately have to learn about. But yeah, my experience playing the series was pretty much limited to. I might have played Sonic Adventure 1. I might have just blocked out the memories, but I remember playing Sonic Adventure 2, and then I eventually played the the masterpiece. I played Sonic 06, or at least I attempted to play Sonic 06. I think I got to the first segment with Silver and couldn't advance due to glitches. Which is to say that I've never really super been into the series. I've always loved the vibes of it. From what I've seen of the deeper lore, Sonic's quite a bit of a punk. Once I've covered enough Sonic games, I eventually plan to go and produce a video about how Sonic is punk. The music might not be. It's made up of a bunch of former hair band dudes, from what I've been told, and some white guy on the internet told me about this via a YouTube video. And the elements of the Sonic series regarding it's cyberpunk in some ways, in that Dr. Robotnik is an asshole and he goes around kidnapping little creatures. The furry humanoid people are called Mobians, I believe, right? And then the animals, what were they, Mobies or some shit like that? It's something goofy, it's something silly. But what Robotnik does is he jams cute little critters in robots, and that powers them somehow. I don't quite know how that works. And as you play through this game, at least, I think it happens in the previous games as well. I might play those eventually if there's enough interest. I might go back and play the earlier Sonic games. But when you destroy the robots of Dr. Robotnik, little critters fly out of them because they were like the power source. It's like, I guess it's like the Matrix, right? It's the Matrix, but individualized horror. It's cool shit. Like, the idea is cool. The music is banging for the most part. Some of the music less so. It seems like, I don't know if the lyricist was a native English speaker in some of these. I assume the band Crush 40 or whatever wrote the music, but some of these songs are kind of lacking in the lyrical department. But that's a separate issue entirely. This is not a channel that's dedicated to music theory type of stuff. But that's the Nintendo was the primary console for our family growing up. Playing the SNES and then the N64. Though once the PlayStation also came out, we got into that as well. But regarding Sega, the developer, the producers of this game, though I think it was Specifically, the development team was Sonic Team, I want to say, which is very on the nose. It's it's a fantastic name. I mean, it's the team that makes Sonic. What the fuck else are you gonna call them? Should Pokemon be Pokemon Team? I mean, they basically are. That's basically all they do. Except I hear they're making a new game that's coming out soon, and that looks pretty cool. Back to Sega. My family, for economic reasons, didn't really have Sega systems because this came out as a way to show off the power of the Dreamcast, which was a leap ahead of what Nintendo had to offer at the time. I don't know if it was much better than the PS1, but because working class, and despite bad spending habits, I think I heard mention of a Sega Genesis once or twice. But besides that, I don't think I played it. So I think it was where maybe my old man had a friend who had a Genesis, right, as like their console to have. I knew the reputation of these games going in, both regarding their transition from technically side scroller, right? I think you would classify the older Sonics as side scroller. It's the viewpoint and the fact that it scrolls, I guess, is what makes it a side scroller. Though the gameplay it's not quite like the Mega Man or the Metroid or even the Sonic. I mean, not the Mario. It's not like the Mario. It's its own sort of thing. The core gameplay, I'm not super into. But I might get into that later on, or when if I play some of the earlier games. But knowing the reputation of these games regarding how they handle the transition to 3D, as well as how the GameCube version, which was what I played growing up, I had a GameCube, and I played Adventure 2 on I don't know how bad the Adventure 2 port for it was, or was that the original? I don't know. But I ended up accidentally playing through, graphically speaking, that version because I didn't quite understand the two options. One was like play through Dreamcast version, and then the other one was like play the version and it's got a bunch of shit in it or whatever. And I'm like, well, I want the bunch of shit in it, right? I want all the fixes. Not understanding the Dreamcast version would also probably have the fixes. I might eventually play that through on stream. Might be fun for viewers to watch me play through the Dreamcast version. With that, I think that it is about time to talk about the story of the game, which the story is, well, you'll see in the next section. Sonic Adventure 1 is told in a Roshaman style. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm from the fucking Midwest. I say oop when I run into people. But basically, it's split up into 6, technically 7 storylines, each one focusing on a different character. And there's slight differences for each of the characters. For instance, I've been told by, as I said before, white guys on the internet that for Sonic, everybody is slightly more energetic and aggressive. Meanwhile, for Tails, Robotnik is scarier. His voice gets a little deeper and stuff. That I verified with my ears. I used my own for that. And you can see how their personalities, their perspectives on what's going on, those color the way that their plots go through. There's very minor changes in terms of the story. Generally speaking, it doesn't impact the story in a major way, but it's interesting to see the psychology behind the characters, since my channel is very much about psychological analysis of characters as part of their placements in stories. Because what are stories if not just the characters themselves going through some shit? All of these perspectives, they all coalesce into the grand finale. Though, of course, because this is a Sonic the Hedgehog game, in the finale, you get to play as Sonic the Hedgehog again, which is pretty interesting to do after having played through Sonic's story first. But that's the finale is for later on. As I said before, Sonic's story is the main one. It has roughly twice as much content as the rest, and the overall length is also quite long. Most of the others I got through in about an hour and a half of gameplay. Meanwhile, I think his was over 3 hours, I want to say, because I record in 1 hour sessions. But his gameplay was a solid introduction to the Dreamcast, the way it's handling the 3D environments, and helps show off the new heights that Sega has reached with this, well, the console that was new at the time. The second character I played through with was Miles Tails Prower. I always thought it was Prowler. Evidently it's not. His journey is one of self-worth, of proving to himself that he can be just as good, if not better, than his idol. He's also voiced by an actual child. That happens sometimes. Sometimes they don't get a grown-ass white woman to voice a small child. Though sometimes, I think there was this one. There's one actress at least. I think I can't remember. No, she normally voices young black girls. I can't remember her name though. She was big in the '90s, and I think she's still going strong now. Didn't she voice who was it? Number 3, number 4 on Numba on Kids Next Door. The black girl. I can't remember which number she was because it was number 1. The bald British child was number 2. The fat one with the aviation shit, and then there was the Australian for some reason with like the skater cut and the orange hoodie and then there was the Asian girl and then the black girl. I think she voiced the black girl. I can't quite remember though. I'm not the most knowledgeable of voice actor talent. Back to Sonic Adventure 1 though. The third character, Amy Rose. I wasn't expecting a whole lot because I heard that her play style was just a slower version of Sonic's and was less interesting, but it had elements to it. I'll go deeper into this later, but her gameplay, having helped raise a young woman or two, and having grown up in less than stellar circumstances myself, there are chase segments and the like that helps I can't think of the right word at the moment. Encapsulates, it might be the closest, but encapsulates the experience of being a young woman in danger. And that was something that, as I was like experiencing it, barring the fact that the gameplay itself kind of sucked a lot of ass and not in a fun way, was a true feeling of terror at times. One of my phobias, and one of the things I hate a lot in games, is being chased around by a larger thing than myself. You know, that tracks back to how I was raised as a kid by my birth giver. But that's a separate issue. But it's a recurring one. Giant balls falling down cliffs, less scary. I just don't like it when it's like a humanoid or something. Anyway, another thing about Amy, after getting past the good stuff, she's also like 12 and obsessed with Sonic in a weird way, and like I said, I'll get into more character stuff in their own sections. I just wanted to say that there was some really good stuff in her section that I was never told about, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody really, even when they talked about Amy in the context of her being like chased and stuff, it wasn't talking about how it felt like a horror situation. The next character is Knuckles the Echidna. Now, of course, I could make jokes about how their penises work, of how the echidna's penises work. Echidnas are a weird fucking creature. They're up there with the platypus in terms of weirdness. But he doesn't have a whole lot going for himself. He just kind of keeps track of the Master Emerald, has to go around collecting pieces. He's kind of a dipshit. But he's a cool dude, I guess. I think he becomes cooler after this, if I remember right. And I think in the comics, he's cooler yet still. Big the Cat is a cat who is big and he fishes. I did not like his gameplay. It felt bad. It felt like ass. It handled poorly. He does not feel like he's designed for this game. Yet, Big the Cat, the character, I enjoy. He reminds me of myself a bit. His voice is stuck in my head. I know that John St. John, one of the voice talents I do know of, because he voiced Duke Nukem, who was a famous character. And he also fucking voiced Big the Cat. Froggy ended up not wanting to do that voice, but they forced him to do it. They put a gun up to his head, theoretically speaking. Though I hear that the Yakuza does have ties to... I guess Sega has ties to the Yakuza. Well, I mean, once investments happen, it becomes like a symbiotic relationship. But, I don't think they pulled a gun on this white guy that was probably doing his voice talent work in America. The last character that I played through as was Gamma. Gamma is a robot designed by Robotnik, and his overall plot is something that a lot of people are like, oh, it's been overdone. But the thing is, unless you watch a lot of samurai movies, which I guess the overlap between person who watches a samurai movie and person who plays Sonic the Hedgehog isn't a full circle, but it is a very neat Venn diagram with a lot of overlap. So but the thing is, right, this is a game for kids, and for kids, a lot of them wouldn't have experienced these sorts of stories. So I'll say that Gamma's story is quite touching at times, good usage of limited animations to tell the story non-verbally at times. And he's a fantastic one to close out before we finally get into the grand finale. I'll cover the finale in its own section, so as not to spoil too much before getting through everybody's stories. Speaking of, we got the blue blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog. The blue blur's gameplay was solid for the most part, a good introduction into the 3D world. I've seen people argue if Adventure 1 or Adventure 2 plays better, and I'll eventually have a solid answer, but hopefully Adventure 2 plays a bit smoother. I've heard that's the general idea, is that 2 plays better, but 1 feels better somehow. I don't know how that would work, but I would say that Sonic's story, Sonic's gameplay is serviceable. It doesn't really stand out in any way regarding story or character, since Sonic's always been sort of at odds himself in terms of writing, since you got the Archie comics, you got other Archie comics, you got separate comics altogether, you got the cartoons, you got the video games, and so what we end up with is, in the English and in the Japanese, different characterization in some ways, and so it's a bit hard to judge him based upon who Sonic is when there's just so many different Sonics out there. The core of the game is based around him because he's Sonic the Hedgehog. It's Sonic Adventure. He's the guy. He's the dude. He is the dude with the attitude in the 90s. Sega does when Nintendo don't, and Sega's mascot is not a fat, middle-aged Italian man. It's a fucking hedgehog who is blue. I don't know if I gotta tell you about this, but generally speaking, hedgehogs aren't blue. They're also not super duper fat. I mean, they can be a little speedy. They're little cute, little speedy boys, but he is in fact a bit of a freak of nature. I don't really have a whole lot to say regarding his story. I was racking my brain around it. It's it's decent fun. My issues with the Sonic series is a lot of the time it sort of feels like you either need to know about a route in advance or you're sort of on rails for a good chunk of it. And there were certain points where I wasn't really even playing the game. It just sort of was playing itself. And apparently the newer games are very much like that. They're literally on rails for good chunks of them. I think it's one of the reasons why I like the adventure ones, because you still gotta go around and look for shit. There is, in fact, some parts that I missed during my playthrough that I saw while looking up other people's coverage of this game, which I waited until after I was done playing this game to go and do that. I like to go into games without other people's thoughts on the games, marring my potential opinions. But his end level or two was harder than it needed to be, mostly because of wonky game mechanics. I drowned a lot. I lost the most lives because I drowned during that stupid fucking snake segment. It seems like Sonic gets gravitationally pulled down in the water faster than he does in anything else. And it's just kind of it just kind of feels bad to just like either overshoot or clip through the floor or anything like that. I also noticed something else during the final battle with Eggman, which also his fight was a little bullshit too. Sometimes I would just fall into the void, which isn't great. But anyway, Eggman's super pale during his boss fight here, as well as in, I believe, Tails' boss fight. I think Tails is the other boss fight against Eggman at the end. And I don't know why Eggman is the whitest thing in existence. He's whiter than a. There's so many white jokes to make here. What, do I go the Wasp route? Do I go the Irish route? I mean, the British don't really see the sun a whole much, but that's, you tell the same thing about people up in like Washington or Oregon with all the overcast clouds. But I guess that's about it for Sonic. I would say that he's a cool guy. I wish there was, I don't know, more. The world itself has more interactions and story bits than the actual characters do. And so I gotta give it to the world itself. The individual characters, less, especially Sonic. He's just your bread and butter. And while bread and butter can be yummy, sometimes you want to toast that bread, and sometimes you want that butter to have some seasonings in it. Some, I don't know, man, garlic, pepper. Sometimes you want some Cajun or something. But yeah, next up is Sonic's best friend, Tails. Miles Tails Prower, the best friend and tiny little fox guy that follows around Sonic and has been since, what was it, 91, I believe it was? I think that's the release day of the first game. But this 8-year-old whiz kid is smart enough to build a plane and seemingly live on his own. Though he's still got some growing to do in this game. His main shtick in this game, beyond the fact that he's capable of doing far more than Sonic can, such as working an engine and knowing how to read. Tails is stuck beneath the shadow that is Sonic the Hedgehog, which is a funny thing knowing that eventually there will in fact be a hedgehog who is the shadow to Sonic. Aptly named Shadow the Hedgehog. Yes, this is that kind of series. And if you're not, I don't know how you're not familiar with Sonic if you watch my channel, but if you somehow don't know about the Sonic series, things are fairly spelled out in some manners like that. Some very on the nose naming schemes. I mean, look at Eggman. He's shaped like an egg, perhaps. But over the course of the game, he really wants to be his own guy, his own dude, capable of adventuring on his own, defeating baddies, stuff like that. So in his perspective of things, he wins the battles because he wants to be the one that, wins. He wants to be the one. He wants to be the savior. He wants to surpass his mentor. I don't know how long they've been hanging out. Maybe a year or two. It's kind of fucking weird if Sonic's been bringing a sub 6-year-old out on adventures. You know, if he's like 4 or 5. That's kind of weird. I get the whole Tails as a child soldier thing since they're fighting against Eggman, but it is the lower age of Tails makes it more fucked up that Sonic is like, yeah, buddy, let's go and risk our lives for the sake of all these shit. It's not Mobians. Was it Mobinis or some shit, which sounds like some sort of Italian slur. I've been watching The Godfather lately, and I'm just sitting here. I'm like, I could totally hear Sonny or fucking young Clemenza calling some fucking would a Mobini even be? Would a Mobini be? I feel like that's a homosexual slur. That's what that sort of, or like bitch perhaps in Italian, some sort of like bitchular equivalent. There's another slur I could use, and technically I do have the racial capabilities of doing so, but I feel like it's somehow more intense because of that fact. It comes from native languages, but anyway, getting the whole Sonic is a child fighting against the mechanized terror of a middle-aged man with a mustache. His gameplay is more based around the fact that he can fly, something that trivializes a lot of the stages. Barring some mechanical mishaps due to some janky controls and probably physics. It's probably physics acting up in this game. I'm not sure how quite to explain it. I mean, a lot of the deaths are just me dropping into giant fucking pits, so I think it might be gravity. His playstyle is pretty much the easiest to work with because, as it turns out, having aerial superiority over everything else is the way to go. I mean, as long as you got air support and your enemy doesn't have air support, generally speaking, you're gonna win. Unless you're a fucking moron. Which, that happens sometimes. By the end of the story, he defeats Eggman for good. For this game, anyway, since, like, with comic books, which, as I mentioned earlier, Sonic is also sort of a comic book series. I don't think it's a situation similar to Halo, though. I think that while Halo's book came out first, I think that the games for Sonic came out first, so Sonic the Hedgehog series is more of a video game series than the Halo series. The Halo series is more of a book series that just so happens to have games. But like comic books, like the DCs and the Marvels and stuff, there's a certain status quo that the Sonic series has to return to. Eggman's got to keep fighting and being an asshole. Sonic's got to be a chipper, fun. Sometimes he doesn't eat chili dogs, but if your Sonic the Hedgehog doesn't eat chili dogs, I don't really think he's all that much of a Sonic the Hedgehog. I don't know. I don't mean to gatekeep, but I feel like Sonic needs to eat. He needs to eat them slobby, those glizzies. He's got to be the glizzy gladiator. But with that, it's time for the woman that's got a crush on Sonic. I mean, she's not really a woman, she's 12. So the young girl that has a crush on Sonic and everything's kind of awkward. How old is Sonic in this game? 15 or some shit? I don't know, actually. Anyway, Amy Rose is up next. As previously mentioned, Amy's section stood out to me mostly due to how it was able to capture the feeling of horror and dread from being chased by something much larger than yourself. Her inability to harm Zero the robot for long, as well as the, at times, janky controls, led to her portion of the game having a feeling to it that the others lacked. The feeling of being chased by something much larger than you and effectively unstoppable. It's something that if you grow up with, right, like I did, it imprints on you over time. And I think I mentioned before, it's not when I'm being chased in a game by like a big fucking boulder or a truck. It's gotta be like a humanoid or something. And like the robot, well, not a humanoid, it's still like some fucking guy in a way. And so that captures that sensation, and it reminds me of because she's 12, right? As I've mentioned, I think at least twice by now, she is a 12-year-old child, and having helped raise more than one young girl, it's something that you got to keep in mind regarding the horrors of of real life. And while it's not probably intentional on the part of the developers, it's something that was in my mind as I was like, due to camera controls, due to just the actual gameplay of it. It was equal parts frustrating and, like, it's kind of scary in a way. And the I believe one of the influences for this part, if not from other parts as well, was from the Terminator, the unstoppable machine chasing a young woman. It's been a while since I've seen Terminator 1. I should watch that again soon. But back to Amy. Like Tails, her goal is to stand on her own 2 feet, though this is a bit mixed since she's still being portrayed as being deeply in love with Sonic. Her being 12 and the game including multiple panty shots doesn't help the matter. It's not until the next game that an adult woman finally joins the cast, that being Rouge the Bat. And yeah, it's a bit weird and a bit creepy that there's at least one, at minimum, mandatory panty shot of Amy. I believe in the later game she puts on tights or whatever, which is better fitting anyway. I can't imagine. It's like just for personal comfort of like what you're wearing. It seems like that's the better thing to wear underneath a big floofy skirt like that. Like, what if a bee? Well, I mean, it's still gonna sting through the shorts, but like, I feel like it's less of an issue. I also just fucking hate bees. Every bug desires my blood. I've got yummy blood, and so things bite me, they sting me. I love the outdoors. I don't like people all that much, but at the same time, the creatures also fucking hate me. Deer will lock eye contact with me if it's nighttime. I'm always worried that, like horses, they seek out my blood. Her desire to help the bird that she finds early on, and to try and help Gamma become a better person, if not just a person in general, are some of the highlights of her story for me. She, over the course of the game, learns how to be herself away from Sonic, and I feel like it is in fact done better than how Tails was done. In the end, she eventually does take out Zero the robot through a full boss fight. It takes a bit of doing, but she's able to win out, and by the end of her story, she's got her bird friend. I can't remember if it's at the end of her story or if it's I think the birds all come together at the end of her story. I can't quite remember. But either by the grand finale, they're all hanging out with her. I can't super go into the birds and their impact on the story until Gamma section, and that's later. But I guess with that, I gotta end Amy's section. I gotta get on to the multi-headed man himself, Knuckles the Echidna. Knuckles has not dissimilar issues as to Sonic, I would say. He's kind of there, he's there, and he does stuff. He doesn't have a whole lot of personality. He's kind of a dipshit. He keeps being tricked by Eggman in ways that don't even make a whole lot of sense. His gameplay is serviceable. The punching can be a bit awkward with the locking on. There were at least a couple of times where I got hit because I was punching things, but I don't know if the punch didn't count or if me touching the enemy despite the punch still damaged me. That wasn't a whole lot of fun. But gliding is kind of cool. It's like flying, but worse. There was an animated film about this, in a way, and it was called Toy Story. You're basically just falling, but with some added style. But unfortunately, this is in fact style over substance. Because besides being kinda angry at times, he's mostly just some stoic dude whose inbuilt genetic coding is to protect the Master Emerald. The Chaos Emerald's less so, because apparently Sonic knows more about those. Which I feel like Knuckles should know more, but okay, I guess. It just feels like there should have been more connecting him to the past because he's a Canuck. He's Canucky. He's an Echidna, and you get these flashbacks to the past, and he doesn't understand jack shit. I don't know if he ever put together the whole Tikal situation. I guess I'll talk more about her in the finale section of the game. But yeah, I would just say that I wish there was more of him talking about. I guess he hatched on the island alone because I believe echidnas they come from eggs. They're one of those mammals that do that, if I remember right. They're fucking weird, but like he needed titty milk. I believe they do that, like the platypuses, which leak milk. Don't they leak milk or something like that? They're all weird, but I don't quite understand how he functions, how he works. The fact that he's I guess he's the last echidna. I feel like there's other echidna in the comics, but then again, I've only seen out of context photographs or videos featuring them, so I don't quite know what the fuck's going on in that regard. Maybe one day I'll actually read some Sonic comics, but at the same time, my issues with the comics that are of that nature is, well, which ones do I read? I guess his one character trait is that he's dutiful to protecting the Master Emerald, but like I said, he doesn't understand a whole lot, and that translates back to the player also not. We have to understand things by virtue of seeing flashbacks and stuff, which, as I said, I don't know if he fully comprehends them. They all seem to not really get what's going on, and sometimes it seems like I've noticed with some flashbacks, Tikal and the others don't seem to really interact with the player characters, so I'm just like, I don't really know. Like, are they actually in the past? Because sometimes she does notice them, sometimes she doesn't. So it's just like, is this time travel? Or what's going on? Is she manipulating the memories? Who knows? But that's enough about the literally red-headed boy himself. I guess next up is a character who, through vibes alone, I find far more satisfying, which is Big the Cat. Over the course of human history, we sometimes encounter a being that could be described as a cryptid. One such being is that of Big the Cat, who is a cat who is big. Also, he goes fishing. He has a little buddy called Froggy, and Froggy keeps getting lost in this game, so Big the Cat has to keep going and finding him. There's not a whole lot I can talk about regarding Big the Cat, because his gameplay is mostly just fucking fishing, and I hate fishing in video games for the most part. The overall vibes, though, of Big the Cat, I quite enjoy. Just a common person, just a regular motherfucker who just wants to hang out with his best friend and go fishing in the fucking weird-ass woods. The swamp-ass woods where he sleeps above a floating fishing pole, which is a power-up for some reason. His story doesn't dive into a whole lot. I don't know if he's entirely cognizant of most things during most times. He is truly an otherworldly being, a being beyond most mortal comprehension. My memories of him, I vaguely recall he shows up in Sonic Adventure 2, and from what I've heard from a white person on the internet, this time they were British, is that he was like cut content from 2. Like, he was supposed to be a playable character at some point or something. Like, he was gonna have more like story relevance instead of just showing up in the background being a fucking weirdo jacking off or something. But this is a working class hero, and he's just a cool dude. And by the end of the story, nothing goddamn changes for him. Now, why do I like this more than I like how Sonic's story is about a dude who just fundamentally also just doesn't change? Well, here's the thing about Big the cat. He is big, and he is a cat named Big. And also he's a cat. Sonic the Hedgehog is the main character, and you sometimes, you expect more out of a main character than not much. I expected not much from Big the Cat, but I didn't expect him to be so charming and so kind of adorable in, a dipshit sort of way. Unlike Knuckles, Captain Kneecaps, he was kind of a dipshit in a really annoying way. Like, yeah, he kept letting Froggy go. Like, you'd literally catch him in a level, and then Big the Cat's just like, oh, what am I gonna do now? I'm like, you fucking jackass. Unlike Knuckles, who repeatedly has run into the issue of being lied to by Eggman, Big the Cat just seems like a big fun doofus. And for that, I gotta give him props. I do quite enjoy the idea of Big the Cat. Next up is a character with far more character to them, E102 Gamma. Out of all of the stories, barring Amy's, that of E102 Gamma's was the most interesting to me. For those familiar with Japanese media, they're likely used to the idea of a trained killer turning against their masters, but this is a kid's game, and done nearly 30 years ago. Mind you, it's not just a kid's game. I mean, it was in fact designed for children, but anybody can enjoy a nice Sonic the Hedgehog if the average age of the Sonic the Hedgehog fan members, the members of the fandom, if the average age of those is any indicator, it's not just for kids, it's also for middle-aged people. Then again, the average age of gamer, wasn't it like 34 over a decade? It's probably a little older now. But I mean, that's an indicator of, like, my old man was a gamer and he was 52 when he died. I think he was 52 when he died. 71 to 2023. That's, yeah. He was 52. I always get tripped up on the month because he was born in the January. Anyway. Gamma's journey from simple killing machine to feeling and thinking liberator of the oppressed is more meaningful than most of the rest of the cast's stories. I mean, compare him to Sonic, who just kinda fights Eggman. He doesn't really have a whole lot going for him. Tails at least has the whole, he's trying to become better than, cool enough to compete with Sonic. Amy, who dealt with the whole being chased by a robot guy, which, kinda, imagine if Gamma was that robot instead of it being Zero, which I believe Zero is supposed to be E100, because E101 was Beta, I think? I don't speak Greek, so I'm not quite sure on this shit. The ending of his potential sacrifice for the Flicky within him, Flickies being birds, different from the Mobinis, which are just the other animals. Flickies are, I guess, a separate entity altogether. The sacrifice that Gamma made is a beautiful one. Very touching. And that's if you count it as the way you... Okay, so there's a few ways to look at how Gamma is handled in this game. Gamma and the Flicky within him is the personality, the Flickies, but then, like, overridden through brainwashing to act as Gamma, or is Gamma his own entity entirely separate? Like, it's he's computer programming and he's actively making the choice to sacrifice himself, or option C, which is like a combination of the two, in that the personality that arrives is a fusion of subroutines mixed with that of the captive animal. And I'm not sure which one is a better one. They're all pretty interesting. But considering the fact that I remember that he's in later games, I'm wondering, how the fuck do they bring him back? But that's a thing I'm gonna have to figure out in the future, isn't it? Because I'll be playing Adventures 2, I'll be playing, I think, Heroes or whatever, and then a bunch of other Sonic games that I didn't play through. I didn't finish 6. I believe fans are working on making 6 more playable on the computer. There's a bunch of stuff I want to cover for the Sonic series. My old man, I think, played a little bit of 6. Anyway, I think that's about it for Gamma's section. Pretty straightforward. I mean, one of the best stories in this game. He makes a lot of people cry, either as children or as grown adults. I don't remember if I did. It's been like a week since I played his section, and my memory isn't what it used to be. It used to be a unicorn. But we're finally on to the finale section, in which Sonic turns a little yellow. All the stories of the characters have led up to this grand finale, and it all starts with a weird sound. All along the way of the character stories, we had that of Tikal, daughter of the chief of the Echidnas, whose name is unpronounceable to many people. They are seemingly a warlike tribe that keeps on raiding and growing their territory until they finally met their match in the form of a very wet boy. Chaos is kinda weird that he's supposed to be the defender of the Chow. Ignoring the fact the naming schemes here are fucking weird, there's also the fact that he's just kinda got untold powers he can tap into from the Chaos Emeralds, that he's got access to, like, all the time back in the day. You'd think he would have gotten a little souped up ahead of time to deal with these fucking intruders, but evidently not. Also, I've read that somewhere, when Tikal kind of recognized Gamma as, like, a person, it's because, I guess, in the comic, there's robot people in the past. I don't know if this is centuries or thousands of years ago, but, you know, shit's a little funky. Also, from memory, there was a Brian David Gilbert video where he explained some deeper lore, and I want to say that the emeralds originally were supposed to absorb all human sins or whatever, but that's kind of dropped for this game, and for some reason they're full of good and bad emotions or something. It all ties back into the whole closed heart versus open heart. Tikal's dad, his heart was closed to the suffering of others. Meanwhile, the main cast, their hearts are open to their all good friends, despite the fact that several of them don't hang out together. One of them's technically dead by this ending, and, there's also Big the Cat. Anyway, Sonic turns into a piss-soaked superhero and fights Chaos, and shows how through the power of open hearts and friendship, he is able to surpass the genocidal temper tantrum being thrown by this moist boy. Thunder, rain, and lightning, danger, water rising, clamor, sirens wailing. It is such a bad sign. Shadows of dark creatures, steel clouds floating in the air. People run for shelter. What's gonna happen to us? All the steps we take, all the moves we make, all the pain at stake. I see the chaos for everyone. Who are we? What can we do? You and I are the same in the way that we have our own styles that we won't change. Yours is filled with evil and mine is not. There is no way I can lose. Can't hold on much longer, but I'll never let go. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me how long this will last. I'm not gonna think this way, nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel the burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart, it's gonna be alright. Ancient city blazing, shadows keep attacking, little children crying, confusion, hopeless anger. I don't know what it can be, but you drive me crazy. All your cunning tricks make me sick. You won't have it your own way. Can't hold on much longer, but I'll never let go. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me how long this will last. I'm not gonna think this way, nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel the burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart and you will see. If it won't stop, there will be no future for us. Its heart's tied down by all the hate, gotta set it free. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me how long this will last. Close my eyes and feel the burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Gotta open your heart, dude. Can't hold on much longer, but I'll never let go. I know it's a one-way track. Tell me how long this'll last. I'm not gonna think this way, nor will I count on others. Close my eyes and feel the burn. Now I see what I've gotta do. Open your heart, it's gonna be alright.
Hey, I'll play with you some other time.
In the end, Chaos kinda gets away with what would have been mass murder if the creators weren't such cowards. They claim that everybody evacuated, but like, in that opening cutscene, it didn't seem like it. And also, just like, look at the city. It makes 9/11 look like a minor inconvenience. What do you mean? All's well that ends well. Like, I think that Chaos was let off a little too easy in this game. And I would say that overall, the final boss fight was okay. It was decent. It was one of those like it was kind of sort of on rails. You kind of just went forward and tried not to get hit by stuff so you could build up speed and deal with perfect chaos, but at the end of the day, I don't think that a decade from now, I'm not going to be sitting there thinking about how great this ending was. It was an ending. Now it's time to talk about what Sonic Adventure meant to me. As I mentioned earlier on, I am not the biggest fan of the Sonic series. It's mostly the vibes for me, and the music, and the characters are pretty cool. I'd probably watch some of the newer cartoons eventually. What was it, Sonic Boom, I believe I've heard good things about. But I knew that, eventually, I would need to cover this game. Because my audience is full of gay and autistic people. And what do gay and autistic people love? They love Sonic the Hedgehog. And so that's why I pulled this out. I was like, you know what? I'm going to put in between Deltarune Chapter 1 and 2, I'm going to put this. Satisfy a not dissimilar group of people. And you know what? It was a pretty decent time. I will eventually cover Sonic Adventure 2, as I probably mentioned. I probably said that like twice already. But that's the one I'm more familiar with. And the game itself, the stories and stuff, some of them were decent, some of them were pretty alright, good. Gamma, Amy to an extent. But what stood out to me was how the world felt really alive. the NPCs would have ongoing stories, and that was really interesting. Like the girl at the burger place, and then there's the kid with the mother who was a gambling addict, and then there was the two ladies being strung along by that one guy. And you would just come back after every mission or so, and you'd get new dialogue. I think sometimes it would differ between the different characters. Plus, the different characters, their storylines play out over different time periods. So I don't think we got to see the conclusion to the burger guy and the burger guy inside of the restaurant and the girl outside who was creepily staring at him through the window and eventually went inside and just kind of stared at him, presumably for like a day. It's fucking weird the way she acted like that. But I can't remember whose story it was by the end. Was it like Amy's or whatever? I can't remember. I'd have to go through like hours of gameplay to look for it again. But eventually, you get to see that they're working together now, but she's being forced to smile because she's a woman. So yeah, that's sort of like a downside. It reminds me of how in Yakuza 0, you can order at the smile burger or whatever it's called, you can order a smile, and I'm like, that feels a little fucking creepy and weird. Like, the worker has to smile for you. That's kind of not great. Another thing, which ties into the larger part of the world itself, is how you get Cream the rabbit, who shows up as an Easter egg once in a while. She's flapping her ears, flying with her ears. I don't think she's playable in any of these adventure-style games. I think she's, like a sidekick or whatever in Heroes or whatever. I think she's Team Amy Rose or whatever team she's... Team Heart or whatever, I assume, because that's how they're gonna play off Amy Rose. I assume that's how it's gonna be. Or is Sonic Colors? No, Sonic is. Which one is the one with? It's the High Riders or whatever, right? The one where they're on hoverboards. I like Sonic when it's more punk. Anyway, there were times when it made me feel like a kid again, enjoying the stage as I played them. The jankiness of the controls, though, did impact my ability to enjoy the game, which is unfortunate. I did a couple of death compilations, I think, earlier in the video, which helped showcase. Sometimes, I just went through platforms and stuff. Like, there was no getting around that. Death was upon me. Woe be to me. I do plan on playing the game again on stream eventually with the original Dreamcast graphics. That way I can showcase my thoughts more easily through the story as I play it, plus so I can finally see the good lighting. The game was, overall, a good experience, a fun experience. Good is a strong word. It was a fun experience. And with fan modders working to ensure that the game is as good as it's ever gonna be, it's about the right time for you to play this yourself if you wanna. It's not too expensive. It's under $10, I believe, on Steam that I was playing through. You can probably get it much cheaper. I've heard sometimes you get it for $2-3 or whatever. I want to say it's under $10. So if you want to play the game for yourself and experience it, you can. If this is far in the future and I don't know, if you want to watch the streams I've already done, go do that. If you're watching this, know that soonish I'll be doing the streams, and it'll be it'll be a fun time. It might be a good time. But yeah, I guess time for the outro. Still, due to a lack of having the space currently, I have not made a small shrine for my old man yet. So to the digital world these radical ruffians go. I'd like to thank you for watching, as well as my current patrons over on Patreon. There's only 2 at the moment, but their support still means a lot to me. Their names are Connor and Leon, and I'd like to thank them for their continued support. If you'd like to support me, there's a link to my Patreon in the description of this video. My next big video is on Deltarune Chapter 2. I'm covering the game chapter by chapter due to how it's being released. If you'd like to see me cover future chapters beyond the second one, my Patreon is the best method to ensure that I can grab the full game. See you next time, and until then, stay safe, stay strong, and remember that trans rights are human rights.